Deep in the quiet darkness of space, Jake Wilson let out a tired yawn as he guided his salvage ship through the scattered remains of old space vessels. He had been searching for valuable parts for 3 days now, and his luck hadn't been very good. His small ship, the Starfinder, wasn't fancy, but it was home. The cabin walls were covered with photos of Earth and his family, and a small plant sat near his control panel, giving him a little piece of home in the endless void of space. The radar screen in front of him beeped softly, showing nothing but space rocks and broken ship pieces. Jake ran his hand through his messy brown hair and thought about heading back to the space station. That's when something strange caught his eye. "What's that?" he muttered to himself, leaning closer to the screen. A small dot was blinking weakly at the edge of his radar. It wasn't moving like space junk. It looked more like a ship, but a very small one. Jake turned his ship around and moved closer to check it out. As he got nearer, he saw a tiny spacecraft, about the size of a small car, floating silently in space. Its silver surface was damaged, with dark marks along one side, as if something had hit it. "Hello," Jake called through his ship's communication system. "Anyone there? This is Jake Wilson of the Starfinder. Do you need help?" No answer came back, but his scanner showed something that made his heart beat faster. There was a life sign inside the ship. It was weak, but definitely there. Jake carefully brought his ship alongside the damaged vessel. He put on his spacesuit, checking all the seals twice like his father had taught him. "Better safe than sorry in space," he remembered his dad saying. With a deep breath, he opened his airlock and pushed off toward the mysterious ship. As he got closer, he could see that the design was like nothing he'd ever seen before. The metal seemed to have strange patterns that almost looked like they were moving. It took him a few minutes to figure out how to open the ship's door, but finally, it slid open with a soft hiss. Jake shined his light inside and froze in surprise. There, floating unconsciously in the small cabin, was a young woman. At first glance, she looked human, but as Jake's light moved across her, he noticed her skin had a silvery shine to it. Even more strange were the delicate marks on her arms and face that seemed to give off a faint glow. "Hey, can you hear me?" Jake called out softly, reaching for her wrists to check for a pulse. Her skin felt cool but not cold, and he could feel a weak heartbeat. She was alive, but barely. Jake didn't waste any time. He carefully lifted her from the seat, noticing how light she seemed even in zero gravity. "Don't worry," he said, though he knew she couldn't hear him. "I'll get you somewhere safe." Getting back to his ship was tricky while carrying her, but Jake managed it. Once inside, he gently placed her in his small medical bay. The scanner showed she was hurt, but not too badly, mostly exhausted and dehydrated. As Jake started treating her wounds with his basic medical supplies, something amazing happened. The glowing marks on her skin began to pulse brighter, like soft starlight. Her eyes fluttered open for just a moment, revealing eyes that sparkled like diamonds. She tried to speak, her voice barely a whisper. They're coming." Then her eyes closed again, but her breathing seemed stronger now. Jake was about to check her vital signs again when a loud beeping from his control panel made him jump. He rushed to check the radar and felt his stomach drop. 3 large ships had just appeared at the edge of his scanner's range. They were moving fast, and they were heading straight for his ship. Looking back at the mysterious woman in his medical bay, Jake realized his quiet salvage mission had just turned into something much bigger. He had no idea who she was or who was chasing her, but he knew one thing. He had to protect her. The radar beeped again. The ships were getting closer. Jake sat down at his controls, his mind racing. Whatever was going on, he was now part of it. And somehow, he knew his life would never be the same again. Jake's fingers flew across the control panel as the 3 ships drew closer. He wasn't a fighter pilot, just a simple salvage worker, but years of dodging space debris had made him good at quick maneuvers. He powered down everything except life support, hoping to hide in the darkness of space. The mysterious woman in his medical bay suddenly gasped awake. Her silvery skin glowed brighter, and the marking patterns on her arms began moving like flowing water. She tried to sit up, but Jake gently stopped her. "Easy there," he said softly. "You're safe. I'm Jake Wilson, and you're on my ship." She looked at him with those diamond-like eyes, and to his surprise, spoke perfect English. "My name is Lyra, and we are not safe at all." She stood up, stronger than she should have been after her condition. "Those ships, they're void hunters. They'd been chasing me across 3 galaxies. Void hunters." Jake had heard scary stories about them. Pirates who used forbidden technology to hunt rare treasures across space. Lyra walked to the control panel, her movements graceful despite the ship's artificial gravity. "I'm something they've never seen before. My people, the Luminary, were not just aliens with glowing skin." She placed her hand on the ship's power core, and something incredible happened. The markings on her arm flowed like liquid light, extending into the ship's systems. Suddenly, all the power readings jumped to maximum. The engines hummed with more energy than Jake had ever seen them produce. "We're energy weavers," she explained, her voice tight with concentration. "We can connect with any technology, enhance it, change it. That's why they want us. Want me. I'm the last one they haven't caught." Jake watched in amazement as his old salvage ship transformed. Screens showed power levels he didn't even know were possible. "What happened to the others like you?" Lyra's glow dimmed slightly. "The Void Hunters use our power to enhance their weapons, their ships. They keep my people in special chambers, draining their energy until—" She couldn't finish the sentence. A warning alarm blared. The Void Hunters had spotted them. "Hold on," Lyra said. She pressed her other hand to the panel, and Jake felt the ship shudder. Through the viewport, he saw space itself seem to bend around them. His simple salvage ship was now leaving light speed trails as it moved. But the Void Hunters were ready. A dark energy beam shot past them, nearly hitting the engine. "They're using the power of my captured people," Lyra explained, her voice breaking. Jake made a quick decision. "There's an asteroid field ahead. I know it well. Been salvaging there for years. If you can keep giving the ship this power, I can get us through it." Lyra nodded, but then revealed something that changed everything. "But there's something else you need to know. When I share power with technology, it creates a bond. Your ship, it's permanently changed now. And—" She hesitated. "So are you." Jake looked down at his hands and noticed faint silver lines beginning to appear on his skin, glowing softly like Lyra's markings. "What's happening to me?" he asked, both fascinated and frightened. "You're the first human to ever help a luminary," she said. "I didn't know this would happen, but now you're connected to the energy too. The Void Hunters will hunt you just like they hunt me." The ship rocked as another dark energy beam barely missed them. The asteroid field loomed ahead, a dangerous maze of spinning rocks and hidden dangers. Jake gripped the controls, watching the silver lines on his hands pulse with newfound energy. "Well," he said with a determined smile, "then we better make sure they don't catch either of us." As they plunged into the asteroid field, Jake realized his life hadn't just changed. It had transformed into something beyond his wildest dreams. And somewhere deep inside, a new power was awakening, one that would change not just his fate, but perhaps the fate of Lyra's entire people. Behind them, the Void Hunters' ships entered the asteroid field, their dark energy weapons charging for another attack. The real chase was about to begin. The asteroid field was a deadly dance of massive rocks and spinning ice chunks. Jake's ship, now glowing with Lyra's power, weaved between the obstacles while the Void Hunters' dark energy beams turned nearby asteroids into explosive clouds of debris. "Left," Lyra shouted, her hands still connected to the ship's controls. Her warning came just in time as a massive asteroid appeared through the dust. Jake twisted the ship sideways, sliding through a gap barely wider than their vessel. The silver lines on Jake's skin were spreading, moving past his hands and up his arms. With each passing minute, he felt more connected to the ship, like he could sense its movements before he even touched the controls. "This is incredible," he breathed, instinctively dodging another asteroid without even seeing it. "It's like the ship is part of me now." Lyra's eyes widened. "It's happening faster than I thought. You're adapting to the energy like you were born to it." She suddenly gasped as one of the Void Hunter ships got too close. "We've got another problem. They're not just trying to catch us anymore." Through the back viewport, Jake saw one of the Hunter ships attach some kind of dark device to a huge asteroid. The rock began to crack, dark energy seeping into its surface. "What are they doing?" "They're using my people's corrupted energy to turn the asteroids into weapons," Lyra explained, her voice tight with anger. "We need to wait teach ya outi." The asteroid exploded, but instead of breaking apart, it transformed into a swarm of smaller rocks, each pulsing with dark energy. They moved like they were alive, chasing the ship with unnatural purpose. Jake spun the ship through a series of complex maneuvers, but the possessed rocks followed their every move. "Any ideas?" he asked, sweat beading on his forehead. Lyra's markings suddenly shifted color, turning from silver to a brilliant blue. "Yes, but it's dangerous. Your connection to the energy might help, or," she hesitated, "it might overwhelm you." "Do it," Jake said without hesitation. "I trust you." Lyra pressed her hands harder against the controls, and blue energy flowed from her into the ship's systems. Jake felt it surge through his own newly formed markings, and suddenly his vision changed. He could see energy flows all around them, the dark, corrupted power of the hunting rocks, the pure light of Lyra's energy, and something new, ribbons of natural space energy flowing between the asteroids. "The asteroid field," he gasped in realization. "It's not random. There's a pattern." Working together, Jake and Lyra began to use these natural energy flows. Their ship caught the currents between asteroids, riding them like a surfer on waves. The possessed rocks couldn't follow these patterns and smashed into each other, their dark energy fading. But their victory was short-lived. One of the Void Hunter ships launched what looked like a black hole missile. "Energy drainer," Lyra warned. "If it hits us, it'll drain all our power, including our life force." Jake felt a strange tingling in his new markings. Without thinking, he placed his hand next to Lyra's on the control panel. Their energies mixed, silver and blue swirling together, and something unprecedented happened. The ship's hull began to transform, forming crystalline patterns that reflected both their energies. The drainer missile hit them, but instead of absorbing their power, the crystalline surface reflected it back. The missile reversed course and hit the Void Hunter ship, causing its dark energy systems to overload. "That's impossible," Lyra whispered in awe. "A human and luminary energy combining. It's never been done before." The remaining Void Hunter ships pulled back, clearly stunned by this new development. But as they retreated, Jake noticed something wrong. The silver lines on his skin were pulsing erratically, and his vision was blurring. "Lyra," he managed to say before his legs gave out. "Something's wrong." The last thing he saw before losing consciousness was Lyra's worried face and a massive space station appearing in the distance, its surface covered in the same crystalline patterns that had just saved their lives. They had found sanctuary, but Jake's transformation was far from complete. As Lyra caught him, she realized their accidental energy bond had started something that neither human nor luminary had ever experienced before. And the Void Hunters would stop at nothing to capture this new power. Jake woke up in a room unlike anything he'd ever seen. The walls were made of living crystal that pulsed with soft light, changing colors like a gentle aurora. His new markings now covered most of his body, glowing in sync with the room's crystals. "Welcome to the Crystal Ark," said a gentle voice. A tall figure stepped into view, a man with bark-like skin and eyes that looked like galaxies. "I am Guardian Thex. You and Lyra caused quite a stir arriving here." Jake tried to sit up, but his body felt strange, like energy was flowing through him instead of blood. "Where's Lyra? Is she safe?" "I'm here." Lyra appeared, looking stronger than ever. Her silver markings now had traces of blue in them, matching the new patterns in Jake's skin. "This is one of the last safe havens in the galaxy, a place where beings like me, like us now, can find protection." Guardian Thex waved his hand, and a holographic image appeared in the center of the room. It showed Jake and Lyra's ship during their escape, the crystal transformation spreading across its hull. "In all my centuries guarding this station, I've never seen anything like this. Human DNA shouldn't be able to accept luminary energy, yet you've not only accepted it, you've enhanced it." Jake finally managed to stand, noticing that the crystal floor seemed to respond to his footsteps, creating tiny ripples of light. "What's happening to me?" "Perhaps it's better if I show you," Lyra said, taking his hand. The moment they touched, their markings brightened, and the entire room resonated with their combined energy. They walked through the station, and Jake saw wonders beyond imagination. Refugees from 100 worlds lived here, each with their own unique powers and stories. There were beings made of living fire, creatures that could bend gravity, and children who could speak to machines. But the most amazing sight was the station's heart, a massive crystal chamber where dozens of luminari worked together, their combined power keeping the station hidden from the Void Hunters. As Jake and Lyra entered, every crystal in the room pulsed brighter. "Your combined energy signature," Guardian Thex explained. "It's amplifying our defenses. Somehow, the human element in your power makes it stronger, more adaptable." Suddenly, one of the refugee children, a small girl with butterfly wings, flew up to them in panic. "The bad lights are hurting Mama," she cried. They rushed to the medical wing, where Jake saw something terrifying. Dark energy, like what the Void Hunters used, was spreading through a woman's body, corrupting her natural powers. Without thinking, Jake reached out. His markings pulsed, and somehow he could see the dark energy's pattern. "Lyra," he called, "if we combine our power like we did in the ship." They placed their hands on either side of the sick woman. Their mixed energy flowed into her, and where the dark corruption touched their light, it dissolved. The woman's eyes opened, her powers restored. "Impossible," Guardian Thex whispered. "You can cure the Void Hunters' corruption." But their victory was short-lived. A station-wide alarm blared, and the crystals turned red. One of the station's technicians, a being made of flowing data, appeared. "Guardian, our deep space sensors detect 3 Void Hunter capital ships on approach. They're using a new kind of cloaking technology. They must have followed their corruption's energy signature." Jake looked at his hands, watching the silver and blue energy swirl beneath his skin. They had discovered a way to heal the Void Hunters' victims, but in doing so, they'd led the Hunters right to the sanctuary. "There's more," the data being continued, its form flickering with worry. "Scans show they'd brought something new. They're using corrupted Guardian technology." Guardian Thex's galaxy eyes went dark with fear. "Then they don't just want to capture the refugees anymore. They want to corrupt the entire station." Lyra gripped Jake's hand, their combined power pulsing with determination. "Then we'll have to show them what a true fusion of powers can do. Human adaptability, luminary energy. And now," Jake finished her sentence, feeling the station's crystals resonating with their shared power, "we have a whole sanctuary of powers to protect." The crystal walls of the station began to shift, preparing for battle, as the refugees, beams of fire, gravity shapers, machine speakers, and more, gathered around Jake and Lyra. The crystal arc was about to face its greatest test, and at its heart, a power never seen before in the galaxy was about to be truly unleashed. The crystal arc hummed with defensive energy as everyone prepared for battle. Jake and Lyra stood in the control center with Guardian Thex, watching the massive holographic display showing the approaching Void Hunter ships. But something felt wrong to Jake. His new powers were sensing an odd energy pattern inside the station itself. "The main shields aren't responding properly," reported Nova, a young technician whose body was made of swirling stardust. Her light dimmed with concern as she worked at the crystal controls. "Let me help," Jake said, placing his hand on the crystal panel. His markings glowed, and he felt the station's energy flowing through him. Then he sensed it, a dark corruption, hidden but growing. "There's something inside the shields, eating away at them." Lyra connected to the panel too, their combined power revealing the truth. "The Void Hunters aren't just approaching," she gasped. "They're already here." Suddenly, the crystal walls throughout the station began turning black, corrupted veins spreading like cracks. Guardian Thex's galaxy eyes widened in horror. "Impossible. The only way they could corrupt our systems is if they had help from the inside," came a cold voice. Nova's stardust body turned dark purple, and her smile became cruel. "I've been feeding them our shield codes for months." Before anyone could react, Nova released a burst of corrupted stellar energy, knocking everyone back. The holographic displays went crazy as hidden devices activated throughout the station, spreading Void Hunter corruption through the crystal networks. "Why?" Lyra demanded, helping Jake to his feet. "This is a sanctuary." "Because perfection requires evolution," Nova replied, her voice distorting. "The Void Hunters don't just steal power, they improve it, make it stronger. And now, with your unique human luminary energy, we'll create something entirely new." The station shuddered as the 3 Void Hunter capital ships emerged from cloaking right next to them. But instead of attacking, they began connecting to the station through dark energy tendrils, like a virus infecting a body. Jake felt the corruption trying to seep into his markings, but something strange happened. Where his human DNA mixed with luminary energy, the corruption couldn't take hold. An idea struck him. "Lyra," he called out, "remember how we healed that woman? We need to do that with the whole station." They joined hands, and Jake reached out to the other refugees who had gathered to fight. "Everyone, connect your powers through us. Whatever makes you unique, fire, gravity, machine speaking, channel it all together." The refugees linked hands, forming a chain of power. A young gravity shaper levitated them into the heart of the station. The fire beings spun a protective ring around them. The machine-speaking children sang to the station's crystals, fighting the corruption. Guardian Thex, though wounded, added his ancient power to their circle. "The station was built to protect all forms of life," he declared. "Its true power comes from unity, not corruption." Their combined energy surged through Jake and Lyra, their unique bond transforming it into something the galaxy had never seen. Pure light exploded outward, a fusion of 100 different powers. Where it touched the corrupted crystals, they didn't just heal, they evolved. The station's crystals transformed, taking on the combined aspects of all its refugees. Sections became living flame, others pulsed with gravitational force, some sang with machine language, all protected by the new human luminary energy field. But Nova wasn't finished. As her dark power was pushed back, she revealed her final trick. She thrust her corrupted hand into the station's main power core. "If I can't have the station's power," she snarled, "no one will." The power core began to overload. Emergency crystals flashed red everywhere. They had seconds before the entire station would explode. Lyra looked at Jake, their shared power still flowing. "The escape pods won't launch in time to save everyone." Jake nodded, understanding. "Then we don't escape. We contain it." Together, they dove toward the overloading core, their combined energy creating a crystal cocoon around it. The refugees watched in horror as Jake and Lyra were engulfed in blinding light. Nova laughed maniacally as the power core detonated. But when the light faded, something miraculous had happened. Where Jake and Lyra had been, a new form of crystal life had formed. A perfect fusion of human, luminary, and pure energy. And inside it, 2 consciousnesses still flickered, together but transformed. The Void Hunter ships, realizing their plan had failed, began to retreat. But they had learned something valuable. Human and luminary power could do more than anyone had imagined. And somewhere in the galaxy, their masters were already planning how to use this knowledge. Guardian Thex placed his hand on the new crystal formation that contained Jake and Lyra's combined being. "They're alive," he announced to the relieved refugees, "but they'll need our help to return to their physical forms." As the station's refugees gathered around their saviors, a new age was beginning, one where the power of unity would be tested against the growing darkness of the Void Hunter's corruption. And at its heart, a former salvage worker and a fugitive energy weaver were about to embark on the most incredible transformation of all. Inside the crystal cocoon, Jake and Lyra existed as pure energy, their consciousness intertwined. Through the crystal surface, they could see the refugees working tirelessly to restore their physical forms. But in this state, they discovered something that changed everything. Jake, Lyra's energy whispered, "Look at what the Void Hunters are really doing." Their combined consciousness expanded, following the dark energy trails left by the retreating ships. What they saw was horrifying. The Void Hunters weren't just pirates. They were creating a massive living weapon. Deep in a nebula made of dying stars, they had built a planet-sized web of corrupted crystals. Captured beings from across the galaxy were being transformed into dark energy batteries, their powers twisted into something unnatural. Guardian Thex noticed Jake and Lyra's crystal cocoon pulsing urgently with this new knowledge. He placed his hand on it, his galaxy eyes widening as the vision transferred to him. "By the ancient stars," he breathed, "we must act now." A young machine speaker child named Pixel stepped forward, her mechanical parts glowing. "I can communicate with them," she realized, connecting to the crystal. Her voice came out in musical tones that the crystal responded to, creating a bridge between energy and physical form. "We need to return to physical form." Jake's energy pattern formed words in light, but not like before. "What we've learned in here, about energy, about transformation, we can use it." The refugees gathered around the crystal, each contributing their unique powers to help. The fire beings heated the crystal to specific frequencies. Gravity shapers created a controlled field to help reform physical matter. The machine speakers sang complex codes that helped organize the energy patterns. But it was the youngest refugee, a small shapeshifter named Echo, who provided the key. "If they don't have to go back to their old forms," she suggested, demonstrating by changing her own form, "maybe they can choose what to become." Guardian Thex nodded thoughtfully. "The ancient texts speak of evolution through choice, beings who learn to shift between energy and matter at will." Inside the crystal, Jake and Lyra began the dangerous process of rebuilding themselves. But instead of returning to their original forms, they focused on creating something new. Their energy patterns wove together, incorporating what they'd learned about each other's species. The crystal cocoon began to crack, releasing not light, but a swirling mixture of stardust and liquid crystal. Two forms stepped out, forever changed. Jake's new body was still human in basic shape, but his skin was a shifting pattern of crystal and energy. He could now transform parts of himself into pure energy at will. Lyra emerged with her luminary glow enhanced by human adaptability, able to shift between solid form and pure light. "The Void Hunters won't expect this," Jake said, his voice carrying harmonic overtones that made the station's crystals resonate. "We're not just combining powers anymore. We're evolving past what they can corrupt." Lyra demonstrated by shifting her arm into pure energy, then back to solid form. "Their corruption only works on fixed forms. We're no longer fixed." Guardian Thex called a council of all refugees, the station's central chamber filled with beings of all forms, energy beings, physical creatures, and everything in between. "We're not just planning a rescue mission," he announced. "We're starting a revolution in what's possible." They began training, learning to use their new understanding of energy and matter. The fire beings learned to become living plasma, the gravity shapers learned to become gravitational fields, and the machine speakers learned to transform into living data. Jake and Lyra led training sessions, teaching others how to resist corruption by embracing change. The station itself evolved, sections of it learning to shift between crystal and energy as needed. But time was running out. Through their enhanced senses, they could feel the Void Hunter's weapon growing stronger. More beings were being captured and corrupted every day. "We have one advantage," Lyra told the gathered refugees. "They think we're still trapped in crystal form. They don't know we've learned to master transformation itself." Jake nodded, his crystalline skin shifting with determination. "Their weapon may be planet-sized, but size doesn't matter when you can become pure energy." They formed their rescue plan. It would be the most daring evolution ever attempted. An entire station of refugees transforming together, becoming a wave of pure adaptive energy that not even the Void Hunter's corruption could stop. As they prepared for the final battle, Jake looked at his transformed hand, watching the play of energy and matter. "Ready to rewrite what's possible?" he asked Lyra. She smiled, her form shifting between light and solid. "Evolution is just another word for hope," she replied. The crystal arc began to glow, its refugees ready to show the galaxy that true power comes not from corruption, but from the willingness to transform, adapt, and evolve beyond all limits. The crystal arc emerged from hyperspace near the Void Hunter's base, but not as a solid station. It appeared as a massive cloud of swirling energy, its refugees existing in a state between matter and light. Jake and Lyra led the front of this living rainbow of power, their transformed bodies glowing with purpose. The Void Hunter's weapon was even more terrifying up close, a dark web of corrupted crystals wrapped around a dying star, powered by thousands of captured beings. Black energy tendrils reached out like hungry serpents, trying to corrupt the approaching energy cloud. "Remember," Jake's voice resonated through the energy field, "they can't corrupt what's already changing." As the dark tendrils touched their energy cloud, the refugees put their training into action. Instead of resisting the corruption, they transformed through it. Fire beings became plasma, then light, then back to flame. Gravity shapers turned into gravitational waves, slipping through the dark web's defenses. The Void Hunters launched their capital ships, but they weren't ready for what happened next. Machine speaker children transformed into living data, infiltrating the ship's systems and singing songs that awakened the ship's own consciousness. The vessels themselves began to question their programming. But the Void Hunters had one last weapon. From the heart of their base, they released waves of time-frozen corruption. Dark energy that could stop the normal flow of time itself. Several refugees were caught, frozen between transformations. "Now," Lyra called out. She and Jake initiated their most dangerous strategy. They merged their consciousness again, but this time they remained aware of their physical forms. Their combined energy created a new phenomenon, a cascade of rapid evolution. Where the time-frozen corruption touched them, they didn't just transform once, they transformed hundreds of times per second. The effect spread through all the refugees. The crystal arc's energy cloud became a kaleidoscope of infinite transformations. The time-frozen corruption couldn't take hold because its targets were evolving faster than it could freeze them. Guardian Fex, his galaxy eyes blazing, led a team to the central core where the captured beings were held. His body shifted between ancient energy patterns, each one older and more powerful than the last. "The universe itself," he declared, "is constant evolution." The Void Hunter's weapon began to destabilize. The corrupted crystal web couldn't adapt fast enough to the cascade of transformations surrounding it. The dying star at its heart started to pulse with new life, responding to the waves of evolutionary energy. Jake and Lyra pushed their power further, merging not just with each other now, but creating a connection between all the refugees. Each being's unique way of transforming added to the whole. The machine speaker's songs became fire. The fire became gravity, the gravity became light, and the light became infinite new forms of energy they had never imagined. The captured beings in the core began to wake up, their own natural evolution breaking through the corruption. The Void Hunters' dark energy couldn't hold them anymore. Nothing could stop the power of chosen transformation. But victory came with a price. The dying star, now free of corruption, was going supernova. Its explosion would destroy everything nearby, including the escaping refugees. Jake looked at Lyra, both of them understanding what had to be done. Together, they reached out to every refugee, every awakened ship, every transformed being, and shared their final evolution. The entire rescue force transformed into a new state of matter, a living web of conscious light that could survive even a star's death. As the supernova exploded, its energy didn't destroy them, it became part of them. When the light faded, something miraculous had happened. Where there had been a weapon of corruption, there was now a nebula of living light. The refugees existed in a community of shared evolution, able to shift between energy and matter at will. The Void Hunters' surviving ships fled, their dark energy technology useless against beings who had transcended the very limits of form. The Crystal Ark reformed, now a living legend, the heart of what would become known as the Evolution Revolution. Beings from across the galaxy would come seeking not just sanctuary, but transformation. Jake and Lyra, still able to shift between their various forms, stood in the station's new central chamber. The rescued beings were adapting to their freedom, learning to control their own evolution. "What do we do now?" one of the machine speaker children asked, her form flickering between data and light. Jake smiled, his crystalline skin shimmering with possibilities. "We teach the galaxy what we've learned, that true power isn't about control or corruption. It's about having the courage to transform, to evolve, to become something new." Lyra took his hand, their energies swirling together, "and we show them that the greatest evolution of all is learning to change together." Around them, the Crystal Ark pulsed with the light of countless transformed beings, each one a testament to the truth they had discovered. In a universe of infinite possibilities, the power to evolve was the greatest power of all. The end.